and welcome to the Craft Beer Corner. For today's beer review, we're jumping into a beer from Tombstone Brewing Company out of Tombstone, Arizona. We've done maybe 1, 2, 3, somewhere like that, beers of theirs in the past several years, but it's definitely been a while. I got this one from Tavour, as I have gotten all of my Tombstone Brewing beers. And this one is called Rye IPA, and it's exactly what it sounds like. So no guesswork needed with Tombstone. It's an IPA that has rye added into the grain bill. This one clocks in at 7.1% ABV. Before we even go further, I'll say that despite my best research efforts, I could not find what hops they used in the hop bill. So we're just going to have to smell and taste it and, come up with a guess. Not that it really matters, but if I can find that information, I do like to share exactly what hops are in a given IPA. So, label art on here, very clean design. I kind of remember this being kind of the general theme of this brewer on the prior beers. Not much to talk about, so we're going to get this cracked and poured to our nice, tall, all-purpose glass. Gently, gently. All right. Straight in. Oh yeah, I'm already getting big hop aroma off of this. It smells really, really nice. I don't want to go too aggressive with the pour because it's doing a good job forming a nice creamy head here. We'll just top it right about to there. Yeah, that looks great. So visually, this one's a little bit cloudy. It's a little occluded. I don't know if this is intended to be a New England style. It could just be the way that it looks. Totally fine either way. I am not having the easiest time seeing exactly the carbonation, but I can see kind of medium small clean from the sides of the glass. It's clearly rushing up from somewhere. Did form a nice, lush, thick, creamy head here, and I can tell you, even as soon as I started to pour it after it was cracked and a good foot and a half away from this glass, it's got very big hop aromas. So let's get right up over this for a full sniff. Oh yeah. Okay. A little bit of citrus on the nose. A little bit of kind of orangey grapefruit kind of blend there. Definitely getting some tropical fruit as well. This one does strongly remind me of passion fruit. Maybe even a bit of peach on the nose. A little bit of underlying earthiness to it as well. Not really getting anything floral on here. Yeah, so it smells quite nice. Very pronounced aroma. Kind of citrusy and tropical fruit vibe with just a little twinge of earthiness. But it smells fantastic. It looks fantastic. Head is still holding true. Let's just jump right in. Give this a first sip. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's nice. Okay. So, body and mouthfeel. This is 7.1. It's kind of sitting in the average-ish range for a standard IPA. Maybe a little bit on the high end. They're typically going to run, anywhere from 6 to 7.5 on a standard American craft IPA. So this is sitting right in the mid-range Goldilocks zone. The weight on this is a nice full medium. It feels appropriate for the beer style and it feels appropriate for the ABV. I would say, top spec on the body. It's exactly what I expected. In terms of the mouthfeel, this one you can feel that, it's a little higher gravity beer, so there's a bit more resistance, but 7.1, it's not over the top, but you do get that nice resistance, and I can say that this one does get very velvety smooth, just velvety, creamy smooth as you agitate across the palate. It feels very nice. So overall, body and mouthfeel, spectacular. Exactly what I was hoping for. No curveballs there. So let's talk about the flavor profile. So I don't know exactly what hops they did use in this, but I can tell you that they do impart strongly quite an earthy kind of hop profile in the bittering. If I had to put a number to this, I would guess 40, 45 IBUs. That's kind of my takeaway. It, even though it is a little occluded, I don't think that this is trying to be a New England style IPA at all. Not at all. Nothing about the flavor profile really even suggests moving it in that direction. It's definitely a standard IPA that they added rye in the bill. And rye does interesting things in beer. It tends to have a little bit of a spice, quality to it. Some people can say it's kind of peppery. It's a very interesting grain. I like it in beer. I also like baking with it. I do all of my baking from scratch. I cook from scratch, basically everything. But regardless, this is a very, very good beer, guys. There's a lot of complexity and subtlety in the flavor profile here as well, but it definitely leads strongly with an underlying earthy hop bitterness, which is quite nice. I think it pairs well with this grain, and certainly the rye could be having a part to play in both the aroma and the flavor profile as well. It's a very unique grain, and I always, always, always like it when I see a beer that's got rye as one of the grains in it. It's, you know, I wish more brewers brewed with it. It's really nice. It changes the beer up quite a bit. So we're going to jump back in, get a second sip, let everything re-intensify. I'm going to pick apart this flavor profile again, make sure I didn't miss any subtlety and nuance in what the hops are bringing to the table. We'll pinpoint, obviously, the grain bill as well. Then we'll talk about the balance and the finish. Take two. There's a little bit of a kind of a fruity accent up front. Little bit of that kind of citrus. It's kind of a citrusy kind of blend of citrus and kind of like, again, passion fruit. There's a fair bit of what you get on the nose that comes through in the flavor profile. Kind of the citrus flavor I'm getting out of this is like a combo of grapefruit and orange, so very much like it smells. The passion fruit kind of flavor vibe is there, just like I got on the nose. And there is that distinct underlying earthiness that really starts to lead and drive the bitters home. So overall, it really does taste a lot like it smells. And as it finishes out and goes a little longer, the bittering actually intensifies. You don't always get that on IPAs, but it always makes it a little bit more interesting when you do, because normally you'll get them up front, bam, now you know what you're in for. The ones that slowly build up a little bit as the flavors interweave and start to dial back, I really like, because the bittering from the hops that intensifies on the back is really quite nice. Makes for a very welcome surprise. In terms of the malt bill on this beer, you know, it's got kind of a classic IPA formula here. It's got a nice kind of bog standard, you know, if it were, obviously they can be all over the map. But this one, obviously, based on its color profile, we know these aren't deeply roasted or caramelized malts. That would not be the norm in an IPA. So what you're getting on here is very much kind of that classic doughy, bready, the lighter roast side of the malts. That's a nice underpinning. The rye definitely does make a nice addition to this in this beer. So you can taste that distinct rye quality underneath, even with these nice hops that pop through and the hop bitters that pop through. In terms of the balance, if anything, I would say I would personally like even more rye in it, because it is a very, very interesting grain. I do love it, but it's not out of balance. That's just subjectively, I would like even a heavier hand with rye. I just think that it's a grain that should be used more often in beers. Yeah, barley's great. I love barley. But rye definitely adds a bit of a special je ne sais quoi to any beer that you're brewing. And this is fantastic. So the balance, yeah, we're talking a balance of the malts here and the hops. Whatever hops they did use, I really couldn't even begin to guess. There's so many it could possibly be based on the aroma and flavor characteristics. I mean, just, I could start plucking hop varieties out of thin air, but I mean, it's almost impossible to guess. There's so many that share the same qualities. Of course, we don't know the volume, but again, if I had to guess, I'd say, you know, somewhere around that 40-ish IBUs. That's what it tastes like to me. It's nice. It does kind of open up a little bit on the back end of the finish, which is really what we're talking about here for this kind of final initial first impression. The finish is longer than average, and it is absolutely coming from the hop bittering intensity. This is not top tier. It's not crazy. It's just a 7%, you know, perception to me, like I said, 40 IBUs. So it's a little longer than average, but it's not over the top. But it's got your classic kind of wet round to finish all the way to the end, and it is the lingering kind of earthy bitters that floats on the back of the palate. That's where it finishes off before it's finally gone on the end of each sip. Overall, this is a very, very tasty beer. Really glad I grabbed this one. I love a good rye beer, Rye IPA, right up my alley. Guys, I'm going to take my time, sip on this, come up with my scores. When we come back, we will get this beer ranked from top to bottom. All right, now that we've gotten to enjoy this beer, we're going to get it ranked. This was Tombstone Brewing Company's Rye IPA. Exactly what it sounds like, an IPA that had added rye. 7.1% ABV on this one. Tombstone Brewing is based in Tombstone, Arizona. So yeah, this was a great beer all around. Really, really nice. I really liked the complexity of the aroma. Certainly the interplay of the different hop flavor compounds that came through in the base beer, as well as the base underlying grain bill. Overall, it was really, really nice. Had a nice kick of bitters that kind of proceeded to open up after about 5-10 seconds when everything, the initial impact settled down a little bit. The bitters in the background just continued to just seemingly increase. It was a very, very nice beer. Overall, this beer did extremely well across all categories. There's only a single category that did not get a perfect 10 out of 10. And I'll jump just straight to that one in question, and that was the finish. So this finish was above average, no question about it. It's a standard IPA. You know, to my palate, it tasted probably around 40 IBUs. It had a longer than average finish for something that to my palate tasted like 40 IBUs. And it was this nice kind of lingering, earthy, bitter hop flavor that kind of lingered on the back of the palate. So it did extend out the length of the finish, you know, in excess of a minute. It wasn't 2-3 minutes like some, but yeah, definitely longer than average. And I did give the finish a 7 out of 10. That does, of course, leave a perfect 10 out of 10 in the remaining 9 categories. That's aroma, taste, body, mouthfeel, head and retention, appearance, balance, feeling/intangible, my subjective thoughts, and example of style. So the total score on Tombstone Brewing Company's Rye IPA is a 97 out of 100. Guys, this was just a great IPA. This is one that I would probably say might be one of those that people just getting into IPAs, maybe you don't like IPAs that are super, super bitter. This might be one of those gateway IPAs to kind of get you down the path into getting to some of the bigger kind of West Coast style that are really, really heavily hopped and have a lot of bitters. This was one of those that kind of bridged that gap. So yeah, I mean, I would recommend this all day to most people that are, you know, IPA drinkers. So yeah, a great beer. Definitely one I would consider grabbing. I got mine from Tavour. You know, I would suggest checking Tavour, check Craft Shack, local bottle shops, but definitely worth your while. Folks, that's today's review. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you tuning in today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to stay in the loop when our videos go live, just turn on your notifications by hitting that bell icon. Until next time, keep it beer, keep it craft. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.